Hey gamers, welcome back to Uncharted 3. This is the second half of chapter 12, I believe it is. We're going to go ahead and finish out this section. A little bit more combat, although not as much. It kind of balances it out a little bit better and adds a little more variety, so not as frustrating as the last section. I'd love to know what other people's opinions are of, kind of 12, 13, 14, I would even say 15 to some extent. Like these stretch of chapters in between. It really felt very combat heavy, which, again, maybe if I was playing on the normal difficulty, maybe I wouldn't mind it as much, but on this difficulty, it's uncrushing, and I imagine for anyone who is a much better gamer and or just maybe more masochistic than I am and wants to try brutal, I imagine this difficulty, these sections can be way more frustrating. But yeah, so we are just going to keep rolling along here. And do a little more platforming. There is an enemy over here, and actually when I kill this enemy, I ended up getting, I want to say the Hangman trophy. Obviously it'll show up at the end, but there are a couple sections here where you can get some pretty easy trophies. I think actually getting some of the trophies in this game is not that hard, because there are plenty of opportunities, and I think especially if you play on the crushing difficulty, it can be easier because you're probably going to end up dying a couple of times, and, you know, it's not that I intentionally try to die, but the fact that it happens allows me to kind of farm some of these areas naturally rather than kind of trying to force it out there. So you know, I did like a stretch of maybe 6 or 7 chapters, and I got anywhere from like 10 to 12 trophies in a day, because just some of it was just me completing things, but also some of it was just me farming areas over and over and over again. As I said in the last video, I think getting the M32 hammer is useful, carrying it forward into this section, because you see how there's a couple of heavy enemies, but they're also just, you know, really close together. There's enemies that are in close proximity, so you can take out a fair number of enemies if you have the M32 with you. So yeah, I really do recommend that. It made this section way easier for me. So after we finish this off, we're going to do a fair amount of platforming here. We're going to go ahead and move this crane down. We're going to get another treasure, which I think is going to be our 63rd. But in order to move that crane, or that steel rod, I guess, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. In order to move it down, you got to move that box over there.
Nice. That'll do it.
I will say from a story standpoint, this one section, even though it's, you know, kind of neat, it felt like probably the least interesting part of this game, just because it felt, you know, like story-wise nothing was happening, and it felt like it was just added in here to pad out the length of the game. You know, I'm trying to remember back to when this game was made and the development of it. I think it was made pretty close to Uncharted 2, and you know, obviously when games are made that close, and I'm not going to say that I'm a game developer, but you know, short development cycles means that you kind of have to pad things out. And you see me, I died a couple times trying to get to this treasure, but anyway, so normally you're supposed to go up and up the stairs, but before you go up the stairs to pick up this treasure, you're going to go ahead and drop down, and then you're just going to hop from beam to beam, which you see me doing right here. And I die a couple times trying to get there, but managed to finally make it across, pick up treasure number 63, and then just hop your way back. But yeah, what I was going to say is that I think, you know, short development cycles, obviously we can, you know, they can impact the game. And while I think, I mean, visually and just the character animations, the visuals, the cinematics, and all that stuff, I mean, you can't deny that this game has it in spades. And I think if someone never played an Uncharted game and this was the first one they came to, they would probably think it's like this phenomenal, you know, amazing title, and I don't disagree with that. But it certainly felt like some of these sections were not thought out as carefully. They existed just to kind of create combat scenarios or create moments of spectacle for the sake of creating moments of spectacle. And this section felt like it, because nothing really happens. You know, you're in this ship graveyard, and the whole point of this chapter, actually the next 3 chapters, is really just, you know, to find Sully. And that's kind of surprising when you consider that the previous chapters, there was a significant amount of story that moved forward, and there's, like I said before, there's good amounts of puzzle solving and character development and combat and chasing and exploration and all these different things that come together. This section felt the most like you're either fighting enemies or just platforming to the next section to fight enemies. It felt the most combat heavy, and I think this is, to me, the low point of this game. Is the next like 3 to 4 chapters, which normally you would say, well, you know, I guess that is a problem because when you consider that this game is only 22 chapters long, and unfortunately I die. Forgot to cut that part out, but that's okay. Kind of restart pretty quickly. When you consider that the game is only 22 chapters long, that's a pretty significant amount of time. So I know I was talking very glowingly about the game up until this point, and I think a lot of that was just the balance of all the different elements was much better, and as opposed to this section where it just didn't feel the same way. I will say I think killing 20 enemies while hanging, I want to say this is a way to farm it, because even though I showed me getting the trophy at the end of this, I believe that these sections where you hang, you can get the trophy this way. So this might be a good spot to farm it if you want to. Like I said, I get the trophy a little bit earlier, so... But if you haven't gotten the trophy, I imagine you can probably get it from this section. So I make a mistake here, and I don't really cut this part out, but even though I hang and kill that enemy, I end up dying from it in what I should have done, which is just basically jump off. And what you can do, just to make this easier, is just if you hold that circle button when you get to the enemy, Nathan Drake will just throw him off the edge. But I don't end up doing that, and then I get into this really long fight scene, and then the guys at the other side end up shooting me. So you see me shooting him off, but then they end up shooting me. But on this third try, you see me getting it right, which is what you want to do. Just jump off, and then I toss the guy off. And then from there, you can go ahead and take those enemies out. And head on back, do a little bit more platforming. Try to do some blind hip fire shooting here, but struggle with that. Really thought there would be enemies on this section. I mean, they make it for that, you know, they give you all these boxes and stuff here, so I'm kind of surprised that there aren't.
Nowhere to hide now.
And I don't do what I do, which is jump over, because there's some enemies there. But thankfully, I jump back pretty easily. Yeah, so I think this section is where you'll definitely get the trophy for Hangman. I think that's the name of the trophy, just killing enemies while hanging. Because there's a lot of that in this section. And I will say, for maybe that's, you know, one thing that I think is worth noting in this game is that even though there are different combat sections, they use kind of different mechanics. They don't repeat themselves too much. You're gonna see this in later sections, but like for example, this one section, you know, when you look at this chapter, there was a section which prioritized underwater combat, or at least combat from while swimming. This section that we're on right now focuses on combat while hanging. We're going to see sections later which is combat with moving physics. And sorry, just pick up that treasure. So that rope you're supposed to use to swing over, but it's a pretty well hidden treasure. I try to find my way down, but instead of swinging to the other side, you just climb up there. And real quick, there are two other treasures here that are pretty close together. So instead of going in through that door, you're going to go swing around to this other side and pick up nice glowing treasure on the side there, which is number 65.
Nice. Must be Ramsey's ship.
And then there's going to be a small cutscene here.
Alright. Finally, let's...
But yeah, what I was saying was that each section, even though it can be combat focused, kind of focuses on different types of the combat. So there's variety to how the combat scenarios play out. I think this one was, like I said, about the hanging. When we get into the cruise ship, there's going to be combat with moving physics in the water and the kind of moving platforms. I guess it's hard to describe, but basically like cover going into and out of cover, or where cover like moves around because the ship is moving. So you kind of focus on that kind of combat section. Then you have a different section up ahead, which is more about grenade combat and throwing grenades back at enemies. So there is variety to it. I just think that there's too much and they could have spread it out a little bit more. But anyway, after that cutscene's over, before you swing down, you're going to run back here and pick up treasure number 66. And then you're going to go ahead and swing down. And that should be the last treasure for this chapter. There's a little bit more combat. I'm going to try to hang from here and just pull back and kill these enemies, but you can kind of finish them however you want. Again, if you want to get the trophy for killing guys from the water, here's your opportunity to do that, which I think I try and do.
Oh, great.
I'm actually surprised I don't get the trophy on this section, but it's okay. I can always come back and finish it off. Totally don't realize that guy's there. Surprised he didn't take me out. That's pretty much it for this chapter, guys. Yeah, thanks again for watching. I will see you guys in chapter 13. Again, leave any feedback you have in the comment section, and I will do the best I can to make each video better and better. But otherwise, I'll show you guys the trophies I earned at the end of this. And until then, stay beautiful.